bottom line of the whole Russian invasion of Ukraine is that Russian President Vladimir V. Putin has failed to achieve any of his strategic objectives in launching the brutal and unprovoked attack, said a senior defense official written by Jim Garamo on behalf of the U.S. Department of Defense in 2022. Russia has failed in many of its objectives in Ukraine, mainly of that of taking over Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, and thus being easier to take over the rest of the country. They believe that they could do so within a matter of a week, perhaps at most a month, and the rest of the world believed them, because Russia is the #2 military in the world, that they should have no problem in taking over Ukraine. Of course, this was incorrect, as Ukraine had mounted a strong defensive against the Russian invasion, and are even mounting a counteroffensive in order to take back lands that the Russians had taken as part of their invasion. The analysis of the CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, of 2022, found that Russia had planned and acted in the war based on wrong information on how the Ukrainian civilians would react. They believed that the civilians would act either in a way to not participate in the war, or that they would even welcome the invading Russian military. It's common sense in Russia and perhaps the rest of the world that China has plans to invade Taiwan as part of their One China policy, and has made the international community accept that policy by threats of trade embargoes. This was given by the U.S. Office of the Historian policy in 1978. In order for China to ultimately have better plans, to have a better way of invading Taiwan, they will have to take account and to learn from failed Russian offensive. And that being, they will need to have unbiased plans, to have more concrete and more prudent plans in order to invade Taiwan. China will fail in a Taiwanese invasion and takeover if they do not revise and war plans taking into account Russia's failures. There are two main sections that China should revise the war plans in order to mount a more successful invasion of Taiwan. First is the strength of a Taiwanese military and civilian response, and the second is the quality, quantity, and speed of foreign aid to Taiwan. So first off is the strength of the Taiwanese military and civilian response. Taking into account how Russia believed that they would be able to take over Ukraine and Kyiv based on biased information, which was reported by the CSIS in 2022, China should take a more prudent assessment of a Taiwanese invasion. Putin greenlit his operation based on greenlit this invasion based on information given by corrupt officials and yes men. They gave him information that he wanted to hear, not necessarily information that was prudent to the war that he was going to commit. President Xi of China also has this problem, so he either has to pay for independent reviews on his militaristic strength and abilities to conquer Taiwan, or he can conduct those reviews independently, but he has to do so with unbiased views to his own militaristic strengths. From the viewpoint of the U.S. Naval War College in 2001, China needs to have extensive plans for logistics, as they have to cross the Taiwan Strait in order to invade Taiwan, and they need to aim for naval and air superiority. This is because invading by water is much harder than invading by land. Russia has failed a Ukrainian offensive, even though they're going by land. So China has to prepare even more for an invasion of Taiwan, as they have to cross the Taiwan Strait. And the counter argument to this is China's military modernization plan. CIA Director Burns said that China already has plans to upgrade and modernize the military by 2027, which is supposedly when they will strike Taiwan. And this was given by a Fox News report in 2023. At the end of this modernization, China will have the largest navy in the world. So people may assume that they don't really need to plan that far ahead. They don't need to plan that rigorously for an invasion of Taiwan. But the thing is, these upgrades are not enough to guarantee a victory. This will only give them a larger advantage in a Taiwanese invasion only if Taiwan is not strong enough to mount a defensive, or if foreign navals are not in the vicinity of this invasion. If the U.S. Navy is able to aid Taiwan before Taiwan is conquered by China, The U.S. Navy is strong enough, competent enough, and modernized enough, said Admiral Samuel Paparo, given in a CBS News interview in 2023, and that they at least have the capability and the capacity to stall a Chinese naval invasion enough for foreign aid to come for help. The second thing the Chinese should take care of is predicting the quality, quantity, and speed of foreign aid to Taiwan. China will need to accurately predict what aid will look for Taiwan. Even though they have threatened the world with trade embargoes if they do not recognize Taiwan as part of their own country, other countries will still aid Taiwan. And this aid to Taiwan will be better and quicker than it was for Ukraine. As reported by the Council of Foreign Relations in 2023, China has been aggressive and harassed SEA countries, Southeast Asian countries, for total control of the South China Sea. And these countries will be most likely to aid Taiwan. This is because if China is able to conquer Taiwan, we'll also stop them from taking control of the entire South China Sea. And this will limit those SEA countries from maintaining a navy, maintaining their rights to fish, and maintaining their rights to trade within their own waters. The U.S. Navy will also come to aid Taiwan because Taiwan is the top producer of advanced microchips. The reason why the U.S. military wants to protect these microchips is that they are one of the top reasons why the U.S. military is so much more advanced than China's military. So if China is able to seize these means of productions of those advanced microchips, it will lead to significantly reducing American technological, economic, and military advantages written by The Atlantic, Jason Matheny, in 2022, or Taiwan will have to destroy those facilities in order for China to not become so modernized as the U.S. military. The counter argument to this is that the threat of trade sanctions by China will interfere against seizures of Taiwan. Of course, countries may not aid Taiwan because of these trade sanctions, but it will not limit the more important countries. The more important countries are its immediate neighbors, being the SEA, the Southeast Asian countries, which of course also relates to Ukraine, because the most aid given to Ukraine in terms by a country's GDP are actually Latvia with 1.3%, Lithuania with 1.1%, and Estonia with 1%, given by Statista Martin Armstrong in 2023. So overall, China will have a hard time and possibly not even be able to have a successful Taiwanese invasion and conquer for two main reasons. One is that Taiwan will probably make a combined stand with its military and civilian populations, which will make it harder for China to invade Taiwan. And second is that aid, mainly being the U.S. Navy, will come to Taiwan's aid and will prevent a Chinese invasion.